Well, what do symptoms tell you about your car? Today we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for the special Car Corner edition of Prudent Money. Good afternoon and welcome to the Prudent Money Radio Show. I'm your host, Bob Brooks. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. Well, today, as every Friday, it is the special Car Corner edition of Prudent Money. Tony Joe comes in, spends some time with me every Friday talking a little bit about cars and what you need to do to keep your car in good shape. You know, one of the reasons, Tony Joe, as you know, we started this, and of course you've been doing this longer than I have, when you started with Don Spear, but was to, if you look at where you really spend your money over a lifetime, it is on automobiles, and some more than others, but depending on what your tastes are. But you do spend a lot of money. There's a lot of mistakes made, a lot of, boy, I wish I had a do-over on that, and then the opportunities to really find a mechanic and that you can trust. And sometimes we just don't slow down long enough to do that, or we don't look at that as important, but it is very important. But what we like to do, though, is talk about what you need to know so that you can start making some better decisions and better cost-effective decisions when it comes to your automobile.
And today, I think cars it is more important. Your point is well made, because today's cars, Bob, are so expensive. I joke about this, but it's true. You pay more for an automobile today, for a decent new car, than I paid for my first home in 1984.
Yes, that's.
And I just can't believe it. I go to these car shows in the State Fair, and I look at the sticker prices. It's like,
that's unbelievable.
Man, that's more than I paid for my first house.
Yeah, it makes you wonder why people don't just start with the pre-owned market, because it is just ridiculous what they charge for these brand new cars.
And when you pay that much for an item, a possession, a vehicle, which everybody needs one, you want to maintain and take care of it so that it will last you.
But that has a price to it as well.
Yes, it does. But it's better to maintain the car and keep it for a long term than it is to just trade it off every 2 years, because the industry has you cornered. They've been doing this way longer than you've been around. The used car, the new car, doesn't matter. That industry, they're going to make bank on it somehow.
Right, sure.
And you're probably not going to come out in the long run the winner. The house always wins.
So I wonder if there is such a thing, but any studies that have been done on, if you bought this Chevrolet Suburban, let's say, and you kept it for 8 years, and you put this amount of work into it, then you came out ahead. Or do you know what I mean? Have you seen any?
I haven't seen specific studies that I can cite a source, but I can tell you that's true simply by how long I've been around, much as I hate to admit it, but as long as I've been around and watching things play out. For instance, I have customers that keep their cars as long as 10, 15 years and watched the developments of the repairs on certain vehicles. They're not all the same. And then I have relatives, my own family members, a lot of them. They'll get a new car every 2 years. And right. I can see a big difference in the amount of money spent. So.
Sure. So how was it driving the Ford Model T?
Model T? Oh, no. I started with the Model A was more my time.
I can't believe it took you so long to register.
Well, I didn't quite understand Model T.
Back in the 20s, wasn't it?
What's interesting about the Model T, I got to tell you something. This is quick. Henry Ford was a really inventive guy. When he started the assembly line, which was the Model T, mass production, they were all one color, black. You can get any color you want as long as it's black. That's what he said. But the interesting thing that I have known about, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but when it came to the floorboards, they were actually floorboards on the Model T. And he had different brake people giving him bids for all, as you can imagine, all the brake shoes that they're going to use on the Model T. Well, whoever won, Bendix or whoever was around then, whoever won the contract, he required one thing, and they made it in a 12-inch long wooden box so that they could get the brake shoes and get them delivered in these certain boxes with certain dimensions, because the floorboards were 12 inches wide. He would take the brake shoes and use them, and then he would take the wood from the wooden boxes and use them as a floorboard. They would fit perfectly.
Oh, okay,
so
right.
He kind of was really an innovator.
But that was in the 20s, correct? Early 20s?
Yeah.
Yeah. About when that was...
Well, he couldn't... Yeah, but I mean, think about that. That's a pretty cool idea.
Yeah, it is a very cool idea. I was just thinking, though, to your point, all of the innovation that happened in the 20s. I mean, you had RCA come about, and the radio. I mean, so many different big inventions.
Yeah, really. It was the industrial age.
Golden age.
Golden age.
Yeah, the golden age. And they had their issues, too, that led to some pretty bad stuff. But
Al Capone. Yeah, I can think of a few things.
This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the special Car Corner edition of Prudent Money. Tony Joe, I'd asked you before the program, I said, did you watch, or were you watching TV after the Dallas Laker game and all the slip sliding that they had going on? There was one part, and you remember this, of course it was the subject matter of the whole story, but the cars had to go up this ramp. So it looked pretty steep on television, and to get on the main highway. Well, these individuals would get about halfway up and they'd stop, which it couldn't go any further. And then they started turning back around.
You see, this is why you need to be a little more, I don't want to use the wrong word, intelligent. I'm thinking a little more
aware,
better judgment, because
right.
What should have happened, now a lot of people will notice front-wheel drive, which is a lot of what's out there now. The engine, transmission, and all the weight is over the front drive wheels. So the people that have front-wheel drive cars are much better at climbing icy hills than a F-150 with no weight in the back. You with me?
Right.
So here's what you have to do, and this is what causes a lot of the problems. You got to let the first guy get up out of sight before you go. You can't wait and like bumper to bumper, like everybody's backing out going up this ramp, right?
Right.
You cannot. You got to have cooperation. A smart person would let that car get up at the top and gone, or, get him at the top of the ramp so he can go before you start off, because the guy that doesn't have the traction that the other people have gets caught halfway up and stops. He has no choice. Now what's he going to do? Now you're bumper to bumper right behind him. The guy behind you is bumper to bumper behind him, and it's very difficult.
Yeah, the question that I had for you is, how would you handle that? And of course, you just said a way to go about it, but I would think that thing is so a situation like that is so unpredictable. You don't really know. It's like pick your best way to do it.
Yeah. Well, my best advice would be to try to let the person get up out of your way before you make an attempt. Now, there's going to be somebody that's not going to wait, and they're going to mess it all up, but that would be the way to do it. The other thing would be, that building, was that part of the American Airlines Center?
Yes.
They should have sanded that in anticipation that people were going to get out of the game at 10:30.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I would have raised Cain about that, because that is
because you knew it was going to be a problem.
Right, they knew. Believe me, there's people outside going, it's icing out. It's snowing. It's sleeting.
Let's see, that was Saturday night. What, the game?
Yeah,
that was Saturday night.
Right.
So they were getting out and into some pretty bad weather.
The biggest part of this whole debacle is that I had to admit I watched the Lakers.
It's a good game.
You caught me, Bob.
You caught me,
because usually I don't watch I don't want to watch the Lakers.
I tell you though,
But when Luka comes to town, I got to kind of watch.
Yeah, he's a special athlete. So but it did seem like the first responders, police, boy, they had their hands full, but they seemed to do a really good job. Mm-hmm. Always want to watch the news and see what happened that you're not hearing about. And probably the funniest part of that night was when the news desk was watching the same thing that the audience was watching, and just everybody's kind of not laughing at them, but probably laughing with their crying. I don't know what I would
chaos
do.
Ensued. They were kind of giggling, but the only reason they were smiling is because they weren't there.
Yeah, exactly. So tell me this, and Dan Pillow will always tell you, because he lives up in Minnesota. He's proud of this. We can handle just about anything. What y'all would just buckle under what we deal with as a normal day. I gotta think, and you've of course you grew up living in the North,
right?
That I mean, everything the Northeast has been pounded with while we were going through this, and the Northeastern that's heading that way. Mm-hmm. I got to think that, that's got to be something to deal with.
Well, one of the things that I will tell you that may not be known by a lot of folks that live down here, unless they're from the North, interestingly enough, I will tell you that I, being an experienced winter driver, when I was 18, came down here, and I dealt with the ice and snow that we had, and I didn't exactly laugh at it because, you know what? It's a different kind of slippery. That's all I can tell you. For instance, this past little event we had, I noticed that the ice came first, then the sleet fell on top of the ice, and actually it wasn't bad. You had pretty good traction, even though you knew it was glare ice underneath and you had to go real slow and be careful. You could stop and start off, and it was pretty efficient until the next day. When it melted on Sunday night, some of it melted Sunday afternoon, then Monday morning it really was slick, because now it's glare ice. And I don't really care if you're from the North, from Canada. Nobody is going to be able to navigate a vehicle on glare ice. Try to think of driving on an ice skating rink. You can't. There's just no control. Now, some are better than others, but it's basically stay home. It's very, very dangerous. And I've had instances where I've seen the ice get so bad that the wind alone will blow your car in directions that you have no control over because your foot is on the brake. But it'll actually, if the wind is strong enough from the north, which it wasn't this time, but sometimes it is, and it will push your car when you don't even want to move. You're sitting in a certain spot and your foot's on the brake and you're in drive waiting in traffic, and I've actually had the car push me over where, I'm like, wow, and I push harder on the brake thinking I'm not pushing on the brakes. I am.
Right.
So there's a very interesting dynamic that goes into this Texas weather. This one was a lot worse than people thought, only because it wasn't until the melting started during the warmer afternoon, like on Sunday, and then it refroze. The other thing that, I don't know if you noticed this, but the one other thing that happened this time that we've seen it before, but not very often, that's ice fog. Ice fog rolls in, and it's moisture in the air like any other fog. The difference is it will freeze on contact like freezing rain. Sleet is like small hail balls, okay? It comes down as a small piece of hail. Freezing rain comes down in liquid form and freezes on contact, which is bad. That's the stuff that builds up on the power lines and the telephone poles and trees and makes power outages. But this one was very interesting because ice fog rolled in, I believe it was Monday night. Tuesday morning, I was up real early because I heard the news on the radio, and I got up to watch one of the channels, and the traffic, the high five, stuff like that. Man, black ice, one of the worst things possible because you can't see it. It's still dark out. You don't know it's there. You can't see it. You think it's asphalt, and it's not. It's black ice. And that's the most dangerous part, is because you don't identify it until you go to hit the brakes and realize, you're going faster when you hit the brakes than you were when you didn't have the brakes on.
So going into it, did you think that it was going to be as bad as it was?
I knew it was going to be cold, and that's always a risk. Like this weekend, it's supposed to be cold.
Right.
But, we're not supposed to have any precip with it. However, just being cold can cause problems. For instance, I don't know if you've noticed, there's still snow and ice around.
Yeah,
now, think about, say, an overpass. The water drips from the top, and it drips, the flyover drips down onto the surface street. And if it gets cold and there's still melting going on, when it gets cold overnight, all that water that's on the surface streets is now going to freeze. People think it's over. Oh, tomorrow's going to be cold, but the roads will be fine. Maybe not in some portions. And the biggest thing that I always talk about is, even when you think the storm is over, like today, you think the roads are good, and most of them are, but I promise you there are spots where the sun has not hit enough to melt the ice, and there's still patches. And that's what's so bad, is you don't know it until you're up on it. It's those patchy spots that are the most dangerous.
Yeah, and I'll tell you who got it right, because there was a lot of, do you really think we should close down school again? I think that they got that question right. They closed actually some big school districts still closed today. But my wife was telling me that the parking lots were all iced over, and trying to get into the school was all iced over. That was yesterday.
Mm-hmm. And then you have to consider other factors, like, the kids have to deal with this frigid ice chill and not ice chill, chill factor. Okay, right. I mean, the chill factor is going to be really, really cold, and if something should happen to one of the buses or some vehicle broke down, the kids, you got to consider just the cold air alone. And then something you don't hear about a lot, sometimes the school, the boilers or the heaters, something's failed, and, the parking lot is really bad, which that could be remedied. However, there's other factors you have to consider, especially when you're a big school district.
Oh, definitely. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the special Car Corner edition of Prudent Money. If you got a question for Tony, Joe, or myself, you can go to prudentmoney.com, go to the top of the page, Ask Prudent Money. There's a link up at the top. Go through there and put in your email. We'll get you taken care of. That's all at the website, www.prudentmoney.com. So tell me this. Was there, this probably the last time we had as bad of a ice storm was 2021.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and even then that took the prize. But you'd have to go pretty far back, right? I can't remember.
I can, much as I hate to date myself. 1983.
I remember that.
I remember that. I think. We didn't.
You sure it was 80? I thought it was 82.
No, wait a minute. 83 is when we had no power for like 10 days. This was back in 83. And then the storm I remember before that was 1979. There was no snow at all. It was pure ice. It was an ice storm. That one really wreaked havoc with trees falling on power lines. And, now they've made changes where they cut the trees back,
right.
Concord. Okay, but back then, they didn't do any of that stuff. You learn as you go. And boy, that was a nasty one.
So tell me this, the probably not a question anybody thinks about, but and we've talked about this in the past, but I think it's a good way to kind of wrap things up. Do you start the car and run it in the morning or not?
Can I elaborate? How much?
Yeah, you got you got 4 minutes.
I want to make it clear to the listeners. The choice is up to you, but I want to give you some information just so you can make a good choice. Start the car in the morning. The EPA, some of the manufacturers, and some of the political people involved, like the EPA, they will tell you you don't need to start a car and let it warm up anymore. You can just start and go. The technology has advanced to the point where you don't need to do that. Not so fast, because when you start that car in the morning, that metal is cold. The pistons, the connecting rods, crankshaft, bearings, everything, the oil is thick, like more like molasses than water, okay? So, I mean, I'm using an extreme example, trying to paint a visual, but when you start the car, the engine itself pollutes more than it does after it's warmed up. So the first couple of minutes on a cold morning, the engine is idling at a faster rate. You'll notice it on your tachometer, and it runs faster. The reason they don't want you to warm your car up is because they don't want to pollute any more than you have to, which I understand from the EPA's point of view. But from your own personal pocketbook point of view, I will tell you that there's other things you have to consider. That is, number one, we just told you, or I just described how the engine runs faster because it's cold. Yeah, it pollutes more. But what about the transmission? What about the fluid in the transmission? I mean, if you put it in reverse at a faster rate than idle, you're actually going to take out eventually a clutch or something in the transmission over a period of time. So the engine does need to be warmed up. The transmission needs to be warmed up. There's a lot of reasons you don't want to just not warm the car up on a cold morning. So my advice is, remember, the EPA is not going to be there to help fund you when you need a new engine at 80,000 miles. The dealer won't have any sympathy. I mean, hey, you need a new engine, 10 grand. Well, think about it. It's going to be up to you to choose whether to warm your car up or not. My advice is that you should warm your car up, not necessarily for the reasons that they say, but for reasons beneficial to your financial well-being. And that's all I have to say about that. The choice is up to you.
Didn't President Trump come out with some changes across the board as far as the future where cars need to be from
That's the CAFE standards. That's the corporate average fuel economy. He's lessening the ridiculous mandates on corporate average fuel economy. And the reason he did that was because they were so stringent, it was impossible to meet these standards. So you see manufacturers doing everything they can to try to eliminate weight. No spare tires anymore, just a can of Fix-A-Flat. Thinner rotors on the brake shoe. The brake rotors are thinner. They try to lighten the vehicle any way they can. They use thinner oil because it's better for fuel economy. And it really doesn't save you that much. The start-stop feature on a car, over the period of the life of the vehicle, it was like 0.01% increase in fuel economy. So it's not even worth it, and I hate those things anyway. So let me say this. Corporate average fuel economy ratings are being lightened up a little bit because they were impossible to reach anyway. And all it amounted to was, all you had to do, Ford had to build so many electric vehicles to offset, because the electric vehicle gets, no pollution at all, and the fuel economy is very good due to a battery. It's not due to gasoline. So all they had to do was build a certain amount of electric cars to offset what the impossible standards that they couldn't reach, and it's just a big game. They could buy fuel, carbon credits, and there was all ways to get around it. It was just a game.
Yeah, I just wonder, switching back and forth, trying to follow this mandate, now this mandate, how much money they've just tossed away, trying to do what the government keeps changing. But maybe we have it in a good place now, so that's good. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the special Car Corner edition of Prudent Money. If you got a question for me, please go to the website at prudentmoney.com and send it in, because we are all out of time. Till we do meet again next time, keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.
That's all the time we have for today. Questions or comments for Bob, or to find out more great information like what you've just heard, visit www.prudentmoney.com. be sure to join Bob Brooks again for the next edition of Prudent Money.